"Where shall we go? We have no shelter." The Apache mother pleaded to the rancher, unaware he was. The sun was sinking low over the wide open land, turning the sky a soft orange and pale pink. The wind moved gently through the tall grass, carrying dust and the quiet feeling of an ending day. Far in the distance stood a ranch house, lonely but solid, with a wooden fence stretching around it like tired arms. Smoke rose slowly from its chimney, a sign of warmth and life. To most people passing by, it was just another ranch. But to one Apache mother, it looked like the last place left in the world. She had been walking for days. Her feet were swollen and sore, wrapped in worn cloth that no longer protected her from the rough ground. Each step felt heavier than the last, but she forced herself forward. She did not walk for herself alone. She walked for the two children beside her, her son and her daughter, who clung to her worn dress with weak hands. Their faces were dusty, their eyes dull with hunger and exhaustion. They had stopped asking how much farther long ago. Now they only followed her steps, trusting her because she was their mother. The land behind them held memories she could not return to. The place where her people once lived freely was gone to her now. Promises had been made to them, promises of safety, land, and peace. But those promises faded like smoke in the wind. Families were separated. Homes were lost. The path she now walked was one many others had already taken, searching for somewhere, anywhere, to survive. She had avoided ranches and towns before. Fear had taught her to keep her distance. Too many times she had seen doors close, eyes turn cold, and hands tighten with distrust. She knew how people often looked at her and her children, as trouble, as strangers, as something unwanted. But today, her fear was weaker than her need. The children could barely walk. The night would soon be cold, and she had nothing left to trade, nothing left to give, except her words. As they drew closer, the ranch came into clearer view. The fence was old but strong. A horse stood nearby, slowly chewing grass. The barn door was partly open, and tools leaned against the wall, showing signs of work and care. This place was lived in. That alone gave her hope.
She stopped just outside the fence and took a deep breath.
Her heart beat fast in her chest. She pressed her palm briefly against her necklace, a simple piece made from bone and thread, the last thing she carried from her past life. Then she lifted her head and stepped forward. Before she could call out, the rancher appeared. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed in plain work clothes. His hat shaded his eyes, making it hard to read his expression. He had clearly been working. Dust covered his boots and sleeves. He stopped when he saw them, one hand resting on the fence, his body still. For a long moment no one spoke. The mother stood straight, though her legs trembled. She gently moved her children behind her, not to hide them, but to protect them. She knew this moment mattered. One wrong word could send them away. Finally she spoke. Her voice was quiet but steady. "Where shall we go?" she asked. "We have no shelter." The words came from deep inside her, carrying more than hunger and tiredness. They carried loss, fear, and a mother's determination. She did not beg loudly. She did not cry. She simply told the truth. The rancher studied her carefully. His eyes moved from her face to the children, then back again. He said nothing at first. Silence stretched between them, thick and uncomfortable. The children shifted behind her, and she felt their small hands tighten. She continued, choosing her words with care. "We have been walking for many days. The night is coming. My children are very tired." She paused, then added softly, "We will not cause trouble." Still, he did not answer. His face showed no anger, but no kindness either. It was the face of a man who had learned to hide his thoughts. The mother wondered what he saw when he looked at her. Did he see a woman in need, or only someone who did not belong? She prepared herself for refusal. She had learned not to expect mercy, but something about the rancher changed. His jaw tightened slightly and he looked away toward the land behind him as if remembering something far away. When he looked back, his eyes held a weight she did not understand. "How long can you stay?" he asked finally. The question surprised her. She answered honestly. "Only until morning." "Or until my children can walk again." He nodded once, slowly. "There's a barn," he said. "It's dry. You can rest there tonight." Relief washed over her so suddenly that her knees nearly gave way. She bowed her head slightly in thanks. "Thank you," she said. "We will be gone before the sun is high." He opened the gate and stepped aside, allowing them through. The children looked up at him with wide, unsure eyes. He avoided their gaze, turning instead to lead the way toward the barn. Inside the barn smelled of hay and earth. It was simple, but to her, it felt like safety. The rancher pointed to a clean corner where old blankets were stacked. "You can use those," he said. She nodded again, her voice too tight to speak. He placed a small bundle near the blankets, bread, dried meat, and a container of water. "Eat," he said shortly. "You need it." Then, without another word, he turned and left, his footsteps fading into the evening. The mother sank down onto the hay, pulling her children close. They ate slowly, carefully, as if afraid the food might disappear. She watched them, her chest aching with love and worry. For tonight, they were safe. But she did not know what tomorrow would bring. Outside, the rancher stood alone, staring out at the land as the sky darkened. He told himself this was just another night, just another favor. But deep inside, something stirred, something old and heavy that he had never truly escaped. The barn was quiet now, except for the soft rustle of hay as the mother settled her children into a corner. The blankets were rough, but they smelled of warmth, which made them feel safe for the first time in days. She helped her son lie down first, gently brushing the dust from his hair, then her daughter. Both children had heavy eyelids, their little bodies trembling with exhaustion. She could see the hunger in their eyes, the deep weariness that came from running and hiding and always moving. She gave them a piece of the bread, letting them eat slowly, savoring every bite. She herself had little appetite, but she tore a small piece and chewed quietly. Her mind was not on the food, it was on the man who had let them stay. She had never known a settler to offer help without suspicion or demand. Her people had learned to avoid towns, ranches, and forts because they never knew who would turn them away, or worse. Yet here, in this quiet barn on the edge of the plain, they had been given shelter. The mother looked around. The barn was simple but orderly. Tools hung on the walls, and the smell of hay mixed with the faint scent of wood and animals. It was alive, yet calm. There were no signs of danger, no weapons lying around carelessly, no harsh noises from the farmhouse nearby. For a moment, she allowed herself to breathe. She glanced at the children and saw them beginning to doze. Their small hands still clung to her, as if letting go meant they might disappear from her side. She stroked their hair softly, her heart heavy with worry and relief all at once. They had survived this far. That mattered. Outside, the rancher watched from the edge of the barn. He did not speak, but his eyes followed them. Something about the scene, the mother tending to her children, the quiet desperation in her eyes, stirred a long-buried memory. He had seen suffering before, in distant places and long ago. But this was different. It was closer, more personal than anything he had known in years. The sight of a mother protecting her children reminded him of choices he had made in the past, choices he could never undo. The sky was clear, and stars sparkled above the wide open land. The moon rose slowly, casting a pale light through cracks in the barn walls. Inside, the mother pulled her children close, whispering softly. She told them stories of their family, stories meant to comfort and remind them of the life that had been taken but not forgotten. She spoke of their father in careful words, of the traditions he had tried to teach them, of the songs and dances that had once filled their village. Her daughter's small voice broke through sleepiness. "Will we be safe here, Mama?" she asked. The mother's heart ached. She wanted to promise safety, but she could not. "For tonight," she said, holding the child tighter, "we are safe. Tomorrow we will see what happens next." The wind whispered through the barn, carrying the smell of grass and earth. The mother's mind wandered back to the road that had brought them here. She remembered the towns that had turned them away, the cold stares of strangers, the fear in her children's eyes each time someone refused to help. She had almost given up hope, almost decided to hide in the open fields where the wolves sometimes roamed. But something, a flicker of courage, or perhaps desperation, had led her to this ranch. She thought of the rancher again. There was something different about him. He had not shouted or thrown them out. He had not demanded payment or warned them away. He had only allowed them shelter and food. But she could not read his mind, and she had learned long ago that kindness could sometimes hide danger. As she watched the children drift into sleep, she heard the soft sound of the barn door creaking. She froze, holding her breath. A shadow fell across the hay. The rancher stepped inside quietly, holding a lantern. He did not speak at first. He simply looked at them, standing silently in the soft glow of the light. The mother's heart pounded, and she instinctively positioned herself between the children and him. "I wanted to check on you," he said finally, his voice low but not unkind. "It's a cold night, and the wind can be strong." Words felt fragile here, as if they could shatter the fragile safety she had found. "You are very brave," he continued. "To travel so far with children, I cannot imagine the strength it must take." The mother's lips pressed together. Praise from a stranger felt strange, almost uncomfortable. "I do what I must," she said softly. "My children. They are all I have left." He nodded again, his eyes lingering on the children for a moment. "I understand." There was a long silence, broken only by the soft rustle of hay and the occasional night bird outside. The mother's mind raced. Why was he here? Why had he allowed them in? Was there something he wanted from them, or was it truly just kindness? After a while, he placed a small bowl near them. It contained fresh water and a little more bread. "Eat if you are hungry," he said. Then, without waiting for an answer, he stepped back toward the door. The mother watched him leave, feeling a mix of relief and unease. She had learned that trust came slowly, if at all. And yet tonight there was nothing left to do but accept the small measure of safety he had offered. Hours passed. The children slept peacefully, their breathing even and slow. The mother remained awake, watching the shadows move across the barn walls, listening to the night. Every creak and groan of the wood made her flinch. Every wind gust sounded like it could carry danger. Yet, as the hours went by, the quiet itself became a comfort. For one night at least, they were not running. For one night, they could rest. As she watched the lantern glow fade with the rancher's departure, she felt a strange sense of connection. He had allowed them in, and somehow that mattered more than anything else. She did not know him. She did not know his story. But in this brief act, he had made a difference that could change everything for her children. The mother thought about what tomorrow might bring. Would they have to leave at dawn? Would the rancher's kindness continue, or would it end abruptly? She did not know, but for now she let herself rest in the warmth of the barn and the quiet safety it offered. Outside, the rancher leaned against the fence again, looking at the stars. He did not speak. He did not move. For a long time he simply watched, lost in his own thoughts. He remembered the paths he had walked in his youth, the choices he had made, and the mistakes he had buried deep inside himself. And in that quiet moment he realized that the family he had allowed into his barn had awakened something he thought was long gone, a reminder that even small acts could carry great weight. Inside, the mother finally drifted into a light sleep, the children nestled close to her. Dreams came softly, filled with memories of home, of family, and of hope. She dreamed of a future where her children could run freely, laugh without fear, and know warmth and safety. She dreamed, for the first time in many days, without the heavy shadow of despair pressing down on her heart. The night passed slowly, each hour marked by the quiet sounds of the barn. The mother's hand never left the children, holding them tightly as if she could shield them from every threat in the world. She did not know what morning would bring, but for now, they were together, alive and safe. And in the distance, under the wide sky, the rancher remained vigilant, keeping watch over the family he had chosen to help. In his own way, he too was learning something that night, that mercy and understanding, even when quiet and unspoken, could leave a mark that time would never erase. Morning came slowly, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and pink. The wind carried a chill, and the mother stirred in the hay, still holding her children close. Their breathing was calm and steady, and for the first time in many nights, she felt a little relief. She could see their faces bathed in early sunlight, their small hands curled near her, their eyes still closed in sleep. She whispered softly to them, hoping they would hear her even in dreams, telling them that today would be better, that safety might stretch a little further than it had the night before. She rose quietly, careful not to wake them fully. Outside, the ranch was alive with morning sounds, the lowing of a cow, the clatter of a bucket, the distant neigh of a horse. The barn smelled warmer in the sunlight, the hay dry and soft beneath her feet. She took a deep breath and stepped outside, letting her eyes adjust to the wide-open land. The ranch stretched for miles, fenced and orderly, a patch of human care in the midst of wild nature. The rancher was already outside, working with quiet, deliberate movements. He stacked firewood and adjusted the fence posts, his hands strong and sure. When he noticed her, he paused, tipping his hat slightly. His eyes held the same calm watchfulness as before, but there was something more today. A curiosity, a wait, as if he had not expected them to survive the night. The mother approached cautiously, keeping the children in mind. She did not speak at first, letting her eyes meet his. There was no anger in them, no sudden gesture of fear, only the quiet way people sometimes looked when they carried heavy memories. Finally, she spoke. "Thank you for letting us stay. We did not have anywhere else to go." He nodded, accepting her gratitude with a simple gesture. "You needed shelter, that is all," he said. His voice was low, careful, as though he were choosing each word. For a moment they stood in silence, watching the morning light stretch across the land. Then he spoke again, slower this time, almost hesitant. "Tell me, your husband, your family, where are they?" The mother's chest tightened. The question carried more weight than she expected. She looked away for a moment, then answered softly. He died. Long ago, during the fighting. And the rest, they were taken. We are the only ones left." The rancher's hands froze on the fence he was repairing. Something stirred inside him, something he had buried long ago. He had seen this before. Countless times in a distant past he rarely thought about. And yet, this was different. The pain in her eyes, the quiet strength in her voice, reminded him of people he had hurt. Memories he had kept buried came rushing back, unbidden and sharp. He shook his head slightly, trying to focus on the work in front of him, but the images refused to leave. A small village burned to the ground. Families running through smoke and fire. The chaos and despair he had once caused, long ago, now reflected in the tired eyes of a mother and her children. He had told himself he had changed, that those days were behind him. And yet, standing here, he realized that the past was not so easy to escape. The mother watched him quietly, sensing that something lay beneath his calm exterior. She did not know what it was, but she felt the shift in the air. He was no longer just a kind stranger. There was history here, a story he had not yet shared. And though fear nudged at the edges of her mind, she could not look away. He finally spoke, his voice lower, almost a whisper. "Your husband, he was a brave man. I remember him." The mother froze, her heart tightening. She had not expected this. You knew him?" she asked cautiously, her voice trembling slightly. He hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, many years ago." His eyes darkened as he looked toward the horizon. I was there." "The attack on your village. I led the men." Her eyes widened in shock, and she took a step back, instinctively moving her children behind her. Her mind raced. The man who had given them shelter, the same man who had seemed kind, Was the same man responsible for the destruction that had driven her family from their home? She could not breathe. Her chest ached with betrayal and confusion. I did not know, he said quickly, almost pleading. I did not know you would survive, that any of you would. I have carried this for years, and I tried to leave that life behind. The mother looked at him, her eyes searching his face for the truth. There was guilt there, yes, but also something unexpected. Regret. A man who had once been part of the destruction she had fled now stood before her, quiet and remorseful. She did not know if she could trust him. She did not know if forgiveness was possible. All she knew was that her children were still alive, still with her, and that survival sometimes required difficult choices. Why should I believe you? Why should we stay here knowing what you have done? I cannot change the past. I cannot undo the pain. But I can offer you this land, this shelter, for as long as you need. I can try to make right what I once did wrong. Her heart twisted. The words were heavy, almost impossible to accept. She had spent years running, hiding, avoiding people like him. And yet here he was, offering her a choice. The decision was hers. She could leave and continue her journey, uncertain and exposed, or she could stay and take a chance on a man who had caused so much pain, yet now offered safety. Her children stirred, sensing the tension. She held them close, feeling the weight of responsibility more than ever. Her choices were not hers alone. They were tied to their survival, to their future. She thought of the miles they had walked, of the nights spent in fear, of the hunger that gnawed at their small bodies. She could not abandon them now. Slowly she spoke, her voice firm despite the storm of emotions inside her. We will stay, for now. But understand this, we are not blind to the past. We will watch, and we will judge by what we see, not by words alone. Dead. He nodded solemnly. That is fair, I understand. The morning stretched on, filled with quiet work and cautious observation. The mother moved carefully through the barn, tending to the children and preparing a simple breakfast with the bread and meat he had provided. She kept her eyes on him, studying his actions, listening to the tone of his voice, searching for signs of deceit or danger. But there was none. He worked steadily, quietly, showing a precision and care that suggested he respected the space and the people within it. As the day progressed, small conversations began. She asked him about the land, the cattle, and the routines of the ranch. He answered simply, without boasting, without revealing more than necessary. Slowly, she began to see the man not just as the soldier of her past, but as someone complex, capable of remorse, capable of change. By afternoon, the children were playing quietly near the barn, their laughter soft and tentative. The mother watched them, her heart swelling with relief. For the first time in many days, there was a sense of normalcy. Brief, fragile, but real. The rancher stood a few feet away, observing without intrusion. He saw the relief in her eyes, the careful joy in the children's movements. He felt a deep, unfamiliar warmth, an acknowledgement that his actions, however small, were making a difference. As the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold once again, the mother and the rancher spoke more openly. She asked questions about his past, about the decisions that had led to this place, about the life he had chosen after leaving the army. He answered honestly, with no attempt to excuse the past, only to explain the lessons he had learned and the remorse he carried. The mother listened carefully. She did not forgive easily. She did not trust blindly. But she began to see the possibility of something more than mere survival, a chance for understanding, for recognition, and perhaps, in time, for cautious respect. As night approached, the mother prepared her children for sleep once again. She could feel the weight of the day settling into her bones. She knew the future was uncertain, that danger and distrust still lurked beyond the fences of the ranch. But for tonight, she allowed herself a small measure of peace, a rare and precious gift after so many nights of fear. The rancher stayed nearby, quietly tending to the land, his presence a reminder that safety, even fragile and conditional, could exist in unexpected ways. He did not speak, but his eyes watched over them, a silent promise that the night would not bring harm while he remained vigilant. And so, in the quiet of the barn and the gentle glow of the evening, a fragile bond began to form, not of friendship, not yet, but of shared understanding and cautious trust. Two people from very different worlds, bound by the events of the past, faced the uncertain future together. Each had a role to play, each carried the weight of history, and each would learn, slowly, that the past could shape the present, but it did not have to dictate it entirely. For the mother, the choice to stay had been difficult, even painful. But it had also brought a sense of possibility. Perhaps survival was not only about hiding and running, but also about confronting the past, understanding it, and finding the smallest openings of hope in the world. And as the stars began to shine once more over the quiet ranch, she held her children close, whispering softly that tomorrow would bring new challenges. But for now, they were safe. The morning sun rose slowly over the ranch, spreading light across the fences, the barns, and the wide-open fields. The mother awoke early, as she always did, her children still asleep in the hay. She gently shook her daughter awake, whispering, "It's morning, little one." "Time to rise." Her son stirred beside her, rubbing his eyes, the faint traces of sleep still on his face. The mother helped them wash their faces in a small wooden basin filled with cool water the rancher had left for them. The cold water made them shiver, but it also made them feel alive. She looked out over the fields and saw the rancher already at work, moving slowly across the land with a purposeful rhythm. There was a quiet seriousness to him, a weight to every step he took. The mother's heart tightened as she thought about the previous day, the moment he had revealed his connection to her family's past. She still did not know what to think of him, yet she could not ignore the fact that he had offered her and her children safety, despite what he had done so long ago. She decided that today she would speak with him. It was time to understand more, to know the truth and the limits of his intentions. She gathered the children and led them outside. The rancher noticed them approaching and stopped his work, setting aside the tools he was using. He watched them carefully, waiting. She took a deep breath. "Yesterday you told me about the attack on our village. You said you were there. You said you led the men," she began slowly. Her voice trembled slightly, but there was strength behind it. "I need to know. Why?" The rancher lowered his head as if the weight of her words pressed heavily upon him. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked out across the fields, letting his eyes rest on the distant horizon. "I was a young man," he said finally, his voice low and careful. "I followed orders. I thought it was my duty. I did what I was told, believing it was right. But I see now, I was wrong. The pain I caused, the lives I destroyed, it has stayed with me every day since." The mother listened in silence, her eyes fixed on him. She wanted to believe that he truly regretted what had happened, but the words alone could not erase the memories of loss, fear, and endless wandering. Her children pressed close to her, sensing her tension, and she held them tightly, drawing strength from their presence. He continued, speaking slowly, deliberately. "When I saw you and your children yesterday, I could not turn you away. I could not let history repeat itself in this moment. I do not ask for forgiveness, and I do not expect it. All I can offer is a chance to make things right as best I can."
The mother's mind raced.
She had spent years teaching her children to survive, to trust carefully, to rely on themselves. Now, a man who had once caused so much pain was standing before her, offering safety, land, and care. She did not know if she could accept it. The fear and anger inside her burned, yet a part of her could not ignore the possibility that this offer could change their lives. She looked at him steadily. "And what do you mean by making things right?" she asked. "What exactly are you offering us?" He took a step closer, his eyes meeting hers with honesty. "This ranch," he said slowly, "was built on land that was once yours, taken long ago. I cannot undo the past, but I can ensure that your children will have a place to live safely. I can transfer ownership of part of this land to you, so that you and your children can stay here, without fear of being turned away or forced to wander again." The mother's breath caught in her throat. The words were shocking, almost unbelievable. She had never imagined a life where her children could have safety, where they could stay in one place without fear. Yet here he was, offering her exactly that. And yet, trust did not come easily. She knew that promises could be broken, that even good intentions could fail. "Why would you do this?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. "After everything, why would you help us?" "Because I can," he said simply. "Because I owe it. I owe it to you, to your husband, and to every life I helped destroy. I cannot change what happened, but I can try to help those who survived. This is the only way I know to begin making amends." The mother considered his words carefully. The ranch was large, with fields for animals, a clean barn and water nearby. It could provide for her children, teach them skills to survive, and give them a chance at a life without constant fear. But could she truly trust him? Could she accept help from a man who had once caused her so much pain? She looked at her children, seeing their tired eyes and small hands, and knew that her choice was not only hers, it was for them. Their survival, their future, depended on her decision. Could she risk staying here, in a place tied to the past she had tried to escape in the hands of a man who had once been her enemy? Or should she continue wandering, facing the unknown with nothing but hope and courage? The rancher waited patiently, sensing her hesitation. He did not speak, allowing her the space to make her decision. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the smell of grass and earth. The silence between them was heavy, filled with possibility and uncertainty. Finally she spoke, her voice steady. "We will stay," she said. "But understand this, we will not forget the past. We will not blindly trust. We will watch, and we will judge by your actions, not your words." The rancher nodded solemnly. "That is fair," he said. "I will do everything I can to earn your trust." With the decision made, the day took on a new purpose. The mother and her children began to explore the ranch, learning the layout of the land, the location of the wells, and the care of the animals. The rancher guided them patiently, showing them how to feed the animals, collect water, and manage small tasks around the property. He treated the children with gentle respect, and the mother began to see that his intentions were sincere. Over the next few hours, small bonds began to form. The children laughed quietly as they helped feed the chickens, and the mother smiled at their cautious joy. She could feel the tension in her body easing, replaced by a cautious hope. The rancher's presence, once a source of unease, became a steadying force. He did not impose himself, but his guidance and careful actions showed that he truly wanted to help. As the afternoon sun dipped lower in the sky, the mother and the rancher sat together near the edge of the fields. She asked more questions about his past, about his life before the ranch, and about the mistakes he had made. He answered openly, never excusing his actions, but explaining the choices he had faced and the lessons he had learned. For the first time, the mother felt a small understanding grow between them. She did not forgive easily, and she did not trust blindly, but she began to see that change was possible, even in someone who had once caused so much pain. And she realized that survival was not just about fleeing from danger. It was about recognizing opportunities for hope, for learning, and for cautious trust. As evening approached, the mother prepared the children for sleep once again. She laid out blankets in the barn, letting them rest while she stayed awake a little longer, watching the fading light over the ranch. The wind whispered softly through the fields, and the sky turned shades of deep orange and purple. The rancher remained nearby tending to small chores, but he watched the family with quiet attention. He had seen the relief in the mother's eyes, the tentative joy in the children's movements, and he felt the deep sense of responsibility. He knew that this was only the beginning, that the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but he was committed to doing what he could to protect and support them. Night fell fully, and the stars began to sparkle overhead. The mother held her children close, whispering words of comfort and hope. She could feel the weight of the day, the tension and the fear, slowly lifting from her shoulders. For the first time in many years, she allowed herself to imagine a life where her children could grow safely, learn, and perhaps even thrive. And as the ranch lay quiet under the wide, star-filled sky, a new chapter began. Not one without challenges, but one filled with cautious trust, hard-earned hope, and the possibility of a future where the past could be acknowledged without controlling the present. The sun rose slowly over the ranch, spilling golden light across the fields and barn. The mother awoke before her children, as she always did, feeling a mixture of hope and worry. The past had taught her caution, and even in this safe place she knew that life could change in an instant. She gently shook her children awake, whispering, "Time to get ready, little ones. A new day has come." Her children stirred, their eyes still heavy with sleep, but there was a subtle energy in them, a quiet excitement that came from knowing they had a place to stay, at least for now. The mother helped them wash their faces in the cool water, then guided them to the small area where the rancher had left supplies. Bread, dried meat, and water were ready for them, a sign that he had anticipated their needs. The rancher was already at work in the fields. He had built a routine, tending to the land, feeding animals, and repairing fences. Yet when he noticed the mother and children, he paused and nodded quietly. His eyes, once filled with guilt and hesitation, now carried a subtle warmth, a silent promise that he would do his best to keep them safe. The mother watched him carefully. She did not fully trust him, nor did she have to. Trust, she had learned, was built slowly, through repeated actions, not words. But she allowed herself to notice the care in his movements, the consistency in his actions, and the way he treated her children with patience and gentleness. For the first time in years, she felt the possibility of a life where fear did not dominate every moment. After breakfast, the mother decided to explore more of the ranch. She walked with her children, teaching them to notice small things: the sound of the water in the well, the smell of fresh hay, the patterns of the animals. The children began to learn quickly, their eyes brightening with curiosity and engagement. For the first time in a long time, they could imagine a day without running, without fear, without hunger dictating every step. The rancher watched them from a distance, careful not to intrude but attentive to their safety. He had learned over time that his presence needed to be measured. The past had taught him harsh lessons about fear, about power, about mistakes that could not be undone. And yet, here he was, given a chance to do something right, something meaningful. As the day progressed, he approached the mother with an offer that would change the course of their lives. "I want you to stay," he said, his voice steady but serious. "Not just for a few days, not just until tomorrow, but as long as you and your children wish. I can transfer the land to your name, make it yours, so you can live here safely. You will have the barn, the fields, and the water. You will have a home that cannot be taken away." The mother's heart raced. The words were almost too much to believe. A permanent home? A place where her children could grow without fear? She looked at her children playing quietly in the distance, their laughter soft but full of life. She knew the choice before her was immense. She could accept this offer, a life of security and potential growth, or she could continue wandering, following the uncertain path she had known for so long. "Why?" she asked, her voice calm but heavy with emotion. "Why would you give this to us after everything that happened?" The rancher lowered his gaze, his voice quiet. "Because I must," he said. "Because the past will not change, and the pain cannot be undone. But I can offer this. I can try to make amends, to give what I can. You have survived much. You deserve a chance to live in safety, to raise your children without the constant fear I once helped create." The mother considered his words carefully. She thought of her husband, of the village that had been destroyed, of the nights spent running and hiding. She thought of the children, small and fragile, yet strong enough to survive every hardship thrown at them. Could she trust this man who had once caused so much pain? Could she accept help from someone tied to her family's suffering? After a long silence, she spoke. "We will stay," she said firmly. "We will accept your offer, but understand this. We will not forget the past. We will not blindly trust. We will judge by actions, not words. The rancher nodded solemnly. "That is fair," he said, "and I will do everything I can to earn your trust." The days that followed were filled with quiet learning and careful work. The mother taught her children how to care for the animals, how to fetch water, how to tend small plants. They learned the rhythms of the ranch, slowly understanding the cycles of work and rest. The rancher provided guidance without interference, allowing them to grow in confidence and skill. With each passing day, the mother's cautious trust grew. She observed the rancher's actions, noting the consistency in his behavior. He treated the animals with care. He repaired the fences without complaint, and he respected her family's space. She began to see him not as the soldier who had caused pain, but as a man trying to make amends, a man who had learned the weight of his choices. As the weeks turned into months, small moments of connection began to emerge. The children would run to him with questions about animals or tools, and he would answer patiently, with no sign of impatience or judgment. The mother observed these interactions, feeling a subtle sense of relief. Her children were safe, learning, and even laughing. That laughter, soft and tentative, became a daily comfort. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the horizon, the mother and the rancher sat together outside the barn. The children were playing quietly nearby, chasing each other among the haystacks. The mother spoke, her voice soft but thoughtful. "I never thought we could feel safe again," she said. "I never thought my children could have a place to call home." The rancher listened quietly. "I know," he said, "and I cannot change what happened. But I can ensure that you have a place to stay, to raise your children, to live without constant fear. That is the most I can do." She nodded, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "It is enough," she said. For now it is enough. As night fell, the stars appeared in the sky, shining brightly over the ranch. The mother held her children close, feeling the weight of the past slowly lift from her shoulders. She knew that life would never be without challenges, but for the first time she allowed herself to imagine a future filled with hope, stability, and the possibility of happiness. The rancher remained nearby, tending to small chores but always keeping watch. He understood that his role was not only to provide safety but to ensure that trust was rebuilt slowly and carefully. Each day, each small act of kindness, was a step toward healing the wounds of the past. Months passed, and the family began to settle into a rhythm. The children grew stronger, learning the land, helping with the animals, and discovering the joy of a life without constant fear. The mother found a sense of purpose and stability she had not known in years. She and the rancher spoke often, sharing small stories, practical lessons, and moments of reflection. Their relationship was not one of friendship yet, but of understanding, respect, and shared commitment to the children's well-being. The ranch, once just a place of work and survival, became a home. The barn that had offered temporary shelter became a symbol of safety. The fields and water provided sustenance, and the presence of the rancher, despite his past, offered a rare chance for redemption, for him and for the family he had once wronged. Years later, the mother's children grew into strong, capable young people, skilled in the ways of the land. They learned not only survival but also responsibility, kindness, and the importance of community. They carried with them the lessons of their past, the pain, the loss, the struggle, and the lessons of their present, the safety, the stability, and the cautious trust they had built. The mother often reflected on the day she first approached the rancher. She remembered the fear, the exhaustion, and the desperation in her voice. She remembered the shock of learning his role in the destruction of her village, and the difficult decision to stay despite everything. And she realized that day had shaped the future of her children, offering them a life she had never thought possible. The rancher, too, reflected on those moments. He understood that redemption was not a single act, but a lifelong commitment. He had caused harm, yes, but he had the chance to create something positive from it. Watching the family grow, seeing the children thrive, gave him a sense of purpose he had never known before. And so, the land that had once been taken, the barn that had once been a simple shelter, and the rancher who had once been a soldier of destruction, all became part of a story of survival, redemption, and cautious hope. The mother and her children learned that even after the deepest wounds, life could offer safety, love, and the possibility of a future built on careful trust. The story of that ranch, quiet and unrecorded by history books, lived on in the hearts of those who had survived, taught them resilience, and reminded them that even in the darkest times, a small act of mercy could change lives forever. And under the wide sky filled with stars, with the fields stretching endlessly and the barn standing as a shelter, the mother and her children slept peacefully, knowing that for now, and for the years to come, they were home.